Too late.
It was the mid-1800s when a small girl, young woman actually, of 13, boarded the ship with a brother clutching in each hand. She climbed up that gangplank with a determination that is uncharacteristic of any girl of 13. She had her father in front of her and her mother behind her, and they boarded this ship to leave Scotland, and they were never going to return again, which was a very hard thing for her to understand. She loved her home, she loved her family, and she loved her friends that were present there, but they knew that they had to leave. They got on the ship, and as it began to pull out of the dock, they stood at the rail and they waved goodbye, and that was the end of their life in Scotland. But they knew that there was a brave, bold world out there that they were going to discover in America. This girl, her name was Jane. She's my great-great-grandmother on my grandpa's side. She was an amazingly strong woman, the epitome of how to be strong in life. On the ship that was disgusting with rats and mice crawling around, the food that they were given was rotten and was unsanitary conditions because of the seasickness that everyone got from the ship just rolling around on these waves. Her own father fell ill and died on the ship crossing to America. When they got to America, once again, she left the ship with a little brother in each hand just clutching to her, pulling on her strength, knowing that she was strong and that she would be able to handle what came her way. She had no idea how she was going to handle it or what was going to be thrown her way, but she knew she had to be strong for her brothers and her mother, who was still grieving over her father's death. Their next portion of their trip was a train ride. They boarded the train in New York and they rode it to Illinois. And it was, again, gross conditions. It was hot, close, cramped quarters that we would never today think of living in. We would never want to. We never would. We get on a plane and 4 hours later we're all the way across the United States. But Jane knew that this was what she had to do. She had to get on this train and she had to help her little brothers and her mother get to Illinois. When they got to Illinois, they met up with more Mormon pioneers who would be crossing the Midwestern United States by handcart. How she had the strength to even say, I will help my mother get across, I have no idea. I wish I had the strength she had, but I don't. They built the cart with the other members of their group and they started on their journey. Their mother was never really strong because she had also fallen sick on the ship and she was still grieving for her father. About halfway across the plains, their mother fell even more ill and was unable to continue walking. And Jane, being the strong person she was, got up the next morning, found her mother a ride, and with her brother just youngest than her, she picked up the yoke of that cart and she continued walking. A few days later, their mother also passed away, leaving Jane and her brothers as orphans in the middle of the plains of the United States. The members of the group they were traveling with riled around the family and they gave them the strength and the confidence they needed to keep going. Jane never stopped. She never sat down for a day and said, I just can't do this. She got up every day and she put one foot in front of the other. She had a little brother in one hand and she was pulling or pushing the cart in the other, and she continued going. She was a strong woman that kept going and got that family to the Salt Lake Valley. Once they were there, a good portion of her stress was relieved when the church stepped in and helped relieve her of her burdens. They helped find their family and their brothers different houses that they could stay in and live at. Jane still suffered a number of different things once she did get to Salt Lake, but she was able to get her brothers here, which she always wanted to do. She continued on when her parents died. She was only 13 and she was in charge of 5 little brothers, but she got them to Salt Lake with all of their possessions still at hand. She was eventually responsible for helping to settle Escalante, Utah, and she raised a family of her own. She was an incredible example of a strong woman, and that was back in the times when men were a little bit more in charge of things. But she was strong and she showed people what a woman could do. And that's my great grandma.